Planet Dolan. Who had their wife airlift them out of a prison by helicopter? What happened to the men who escaped from Alcatraz on a raft made of raincoats? Today we look at 10 of the most daring prison escapes in history. I'm Danger Dolan, and today I will be your narrator.
Number 10.
John Dillinger. Nobody knows for sure what infamous gangster John Dillinger's gun was made of when he escaped from the escape-proof prison in Crown Point, Indiana. The local deputy claimed that it was a real pistol somehow smuggled to him, but the FBI believes he carved the fake gun from a potato and painted it black. However he did it, Dillinger escaped from a prison that had its security beefed up specifically to hold him, and he drove away in the sheriff's truck. It's like a plot out of a TV show.
Number 9.
Michel McKelvey. This French inmate had escaped from prison 3 times already on an 18-year armed robbery charge, but the 4th is the one he's remembered for. His wife Nadine flew a helicopter to the prison, airlifted him right out of the prison yard, and landed them a few miles away in an empty soccer field where they had a car waiting for him. Michel's charmed life continued when he later survived being shot in the head during a botched bank robbery. Again, a TV show.
Number 8.
Joaquin El Chapo Guzman. This famed Mexican drug lord escaped from prison twice, though there was a hoax article that suggested he'd escaped the 3rd. The thing is though, Guzman himself didn't do the majority of the work on his own breakout. His associates used some strategic payoffs and a mile-long tunnel dug right up to his shower stall to get him out. It's not certain if he used the minecart on the tracks built in the tunnel or the custom motorcycle left in there, but apparently those were both options for him.
Number 7.
Ted Bundy, the infamous serial killer, escaped from the law twice in his criminal career. The first time he jumped out of the window of an Aspen, Colorado courthouse. He was allowed into the courthouse's law library unsupervised because he was acting as his own attorney, and he just left. The second time he had been convicted and jailed for his serial murder spree. The first time he was only up for assault and kidnapping. On December 30th, 1977, Bundy took advantage of reduced holiday staffing to soar through the prison ceiling and used the crawl space between floors to come up into the head jailer's office. The head jailer was out that day, so he raided the office for civilian clothes and supplies, and then just walked out the front door uncontested. His escape wasn't even discovered until the next day.
Number 6.
Choi Gapbok. This 50-year-old South Korean man had spent about half his life practicing yoga, and apparently after all that time, it actually made him Dalsum. Arrested and held on suspicion of robbery, Choi Gapbok waited until all 3 supervising officers were asleep. Then he covered himself in lotion and slipped his entire body through the food slot of his cell door. Now sure, this guy stood at about 5'4", pretty small, but the food slot is about 6 inches tall by 18 inches wide, and he slipped through in 34 seconds. Apparently they jailed a Korean Houdini, covered in lotion. You can't make this shit up.
Number 5.
Frank Abagnale, subject of the movie Capture Me If You Can, spent the early part of his life as a con artist, before serving a few years in prison and going to work for the US government, which is a joke that writes itself. One of Abagnale's greatest cons happened in prison. The US Marshal delivering Abagnale to his Georgia prison forgot the prisoner commitment papers, which opened the door for Abagnale to convince the guards he was an undercover prison inspector. This led to him getting the highest class treatment while he was in prison and allowed him to set up an escape plan with a friend of his posing as his FBI handler. With the guards believing he was an undercover agent and she was an FBI agent, they eventually opened the doors for him and let him walk right out of the gates, into a car and off to the nearest bus station.
Number 4.
Frank Lee Morris. On the record, nobody truly escaped from the island Alcatraz prison, but there is one escape attempt that we just don't know the resolution to. Frank Lee Morris and his accomplices set out to escape from The Rock with a genius plan that involved escaping to the outside through ventilation shafts, then floating to safety on a makeshift raft thrown together with raincoats, life preservers, and rubber cement. All we know for sure is that Frank Lee Morris, John Anglin, and Clarence Anglin all made it to the outside of the Alcatraz facility and set sail on their makeshift raft. What we don't know is what happened next. The men were never found, and the official story is that the men drowned on the way to the shore. But the Anglin family claims they made it out just fine and may still be alive today.
Number 3.
Charles Victor Thompson. When a guy's on death row, you'd think security would be tight enough to prevent the guy from just walking out the front door of the prison during a meeting with his lawyer. Yep, that's exactly what happened, and all it took was a smuggled set of street clothes and a crappy fake ID. Thompson flashed the fake ID, which said he was with the Attorney General's office, to at least 4 different prison guards, and not one of them stopped to check him. Luckily, he was apprehended 3 days later because he decided to get shit-faced drunk and call up his friends. When the police asked him his name, he simply said, "You know who I am."
Number 2.
Richard Lee McNair. This guy's early escapes were fairly small time and unremarkable, but there are several of them that led police on a number of manhunts to get him back. Eventually he was considered too big a security risk to be held locally, and was transferred to a federal prison in Louisiana. There, McNair managed to get himself a job in the prison's mailing facility, and when the time was right, he bagged himself up and mailed himself out of the prison. He managed to avoid recapture for over a year before being apprehended in Canada. He now lives in a supermax prison in Colorado.
Number 1.
The Sobibor Revolt. Most jailbreaks are cool to think about because they're clever, but at the end of the day, it's hard to root for hardened criminals escaping their punishments. The Sobibor Revolt is easy to feel good about because the inmates were innocent and the prison guards were Nazis. Yep, it was that kind of prison. Of about 550 prisoners kept there, roughly 400 escaped on October 14th, 1943. The prisoners isolated and killed about a dozen Nazi guards in one night with improvised weapons, then cut communications and opened the gates during the confusion. More than half of those escapees were killed during the escape, but considering the entire camp was about to be executed, those were still pretty good odds. So guys, what's the craziest prison break story you've ever heard? Let us know in the comment section down below or pin our favorite to the top. This video was made possible by our fans over on Patreon. Thanks for your support, guys. That is it for this countdown. Have a good one!